Beneath the restless waves of the Atlantic, shadows of a forgotten world linger, stone walls swallowed by the sea, strange formations that defy explanation, and whispers of a civilization lost to time. The story of Atlantis isn't just a myth, it's a puzzle scattered across the ocean floor and hidden in plain sight among ancient stone circles. What if these fragments aren't random, but deliberate signals left behind by a people who saw their end coming? Picture this, a thriving society, its towers gleaming under the sun one day, and the next gone, vanished without a trace, or so we thought, because the truth is, Atlantis may have left us a message, carved into the very bones of the earth and submerged beneath the tide. For centuries, explorers and scholars have chased the ghost of Atlantis, but the answers might not lie in dusty scrolls or cryptic texts. They could be waiting in the silent depths, where underwater ruins stretch like skeletal fingers, or in the alignment of megaliths that point to the stars with eerie precision. These aren't just relics, they're breadcrumbs, a trail leading us back to the moment everything changed. What if the collapse of Atlantis wasn't a sudden catastrophe, but a slow unraveling, one its people tried to document, to warn future generations? The stones they left behind might be their final plea, a desperate attempt to say, "We were here, this is how we fell, this is more than a search for a lost city." It's a detective story written in waves and rock, a chance to listen to the past as it whispers through the ages. Together, we'll follow these clues, diving into the mysteries of underwater ruins that mirror descriptions from ancient texts, decoding stone formations that align with celestial events, and asking the haunting question, did Atlantis see its own doom coming? By the end of this journey, you won't just hear the legend, you'll feel it, the weight of history, the tug of curiosity, and the thrill of standing on the edge of a discovery that could rewrite everything we know. The last signal of Atlantis is waiting. Are you ready to hear it? The story of Atlantis begins not with explorers or archaeologists, but with a philosopher, Plato, sitting in the shade of an olive tree in ancient Athens, spinning a tale that would outlive empires. In his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, written around 360 BCE, he describes a mighty island kingdom beyond the Pillars of Hercules, a civilization of unparalleled wealth and advanced technology. Its people built concentric rings of canals and towering structures clad in a mysterious metal called orichalcum, shining like fire under the sun, but their pride became their downfall. According to Plato, the Atlanteans grew corrupt, greedy, and warlike, provoking the wrath of the gods. In a single terrible day and night, earthquakes shattered their island, and the sea swallowed it whole. What's fascinating isn't just the story itself, but how Plato frames it. He insists Atlantis isn't a myth, but a forgotten history passed down to him by Egyptian priests, a cautionary tale about the dangers of hubris. And that raises a tantalizing question. Was he recording an actual event embellished by time, or crafting an allegory about the fragility of power? The answer might lie in the echoes of his story found in cultures far from Greece. The Aztecs spoke of Aztlan, a paradisiacal homeland lost to floods. Indian epics describe the sinking of the golden city of Dwarka. Even the biblical account of Noah's flood shares eerie similarities. Could these all be fractured memories of the same catastrophic event, a global deluge that wiped out an advanced society? The deeper we dig, the more the lines blur between legend and history. Take the Minoans, for example. This Bronze Age civilization on Crete thrived with palatial complexes and intricate art until the volcanic eruption of Thera around 1600 BC triggered tsunamis that may have inspired Plato's tale. Or consider the Doggerland landmass, once connecting Britain to Europe, now submerged beneath the North Sea. These real-world disappearances prove that civilizations can vanish beneath the waves. So when ancient texts whisper of drowned cities, they might not be weaving fiction, but stitching together scraps of truth. Plato's Atlantis is just the starting point. Every culture near water seems to harbor a story about a land that slipped beneath the tides, as if humanity collectively remembers a trauma written in the language of flood myths. Whether Atlantis was a real place or a mosaic of disasters, one thing is certain. Its legend endures because it speaks to something primal in us, the fear of losing everything, and the hope that traces of the lost might still remain, waiting to be found. The ocean floor holds secrets older than history itself, vast stone structures lurking in the depths, their origins shrouded in mystery. Off the coast of Japan's Yonaguni Island, a massive stepped pyramid rises from the seabed, its sharp angles and terraces seeming too precise to be the work of nature. Some researchers argue these are the ruins of an ancient city, possibly even a piece of the lost continent of Mu. Others insist it's just an unusual geological formation, shaped by millennia of tidal forces. But then there's the Bimini Road in the Bahamas, a half-mile stretch of perfectly aligned limestone blocks that look eerily like a paved pathway. Could these be the remains of a harbor or ceremonial road, now swallowed by the sea? What ties these sites together isn't just their submerged state, but their uncanny resemblance to descriptions of Atlantis' massive stone constructions, advanced engineering, and a sudden disappearance beneath the waves. Even more intriguing are the similarities between them. The Yonaguni monument's terraced design mirrors the concentric rings Plato described in Atlantis. The Bimini Road's geometric precision echoes the megalithic ruins found off the coast of Cuba, where sonar scans have revealed what appear to be sprawling urban layouts at depths too great for conventional archaeology. Modern technology is finally pulling back the veil on these underwater enigmas. Advanced side-scan sonar and remotely operated vehicles have mapped ruins with startling clarity, uncovering structures that defy easy explanation. Off the coast of India, divers discovered the ancient city of Dwarka, its submerged walls and artifacts aligning perfectly with Hindu texts that speak of a glorious kingdom consumed by the sea. In the Mediterranean, underwater robots have captured footage of what might be the lost city of Helike, destroyed by an earthquake and tsunami in 373 BCE. Each discovery adds another piece to the puzzle, proof that civilizations really have risen and fallen with the tides. Yet the debate rages on. Are these ruins remnants of Atlantis, or do they belong to other forgotten societies? The truth might be even more fascinating. Perhaps Atlantis wasn't a single place, but a cultural memory of multiple catastrophic floods that reshaped the ancient world. From the Baltic's sunken Doggerland to the Indonesian legend of Sunderland, humanity's collective myths whisper of lands lost beneath the waves. Whether these ruins are Atlantean or not, they force us to confront a humbling reality: our ancestors lived in a world far more dynamic and perilous than we often imagine. The stones beneath the sea aren't just relics, they're warnings etched in rock and time, reminding us that even the mightiest civilizations are at the mercy of the earth. Stretching across the landscape like silent sentinels, the megaliths of Karnak in France stand in eerie precision, thousands of weathered stones arranged in rows that run for miles. Some call them the Stone Army, and it's easy to see why. These towering rocks, some weighing several tons, were placed here over 5,000 years ago, long before the wheel reached Europe or the pyramids rose in Egypt. But why? What compelled ancient peoples to haul these massive slabs across the countryside and arrange them with such deliberate alignment? The answer might lie not just in the earth, but in the stars above. Many of these megalithic sites share a curious feature. They're meticulously positioned to correspond with celestial events. The Karnak alignments, for example, point toward the sunrise during the winter solstice, while dolmen stone tombs scattered from Ireland to the Caucasus often frame the rising or setting sun on specific dates. This isn't random. It suggests a deep understanding of astronomy, a way of marking time, seasons, or even cosmic cycles. But here's the haunting twist. Some researchers believe these stones might also be memorials or warnings. Could they mark the dates of catastrophic events, like the floods or earthquakes that sank Atlantis? The connection grows stranger when you consider the legends tied to these sites. In Brittany, folklore speaks of a great flood that once drowned the land, with the megaliths serving as the last remnants of a vanished world. Similar stories echo across cultures. The ancient Greeks said the gods punished Atlantis by sinking it beneath the waves. The Aztecs recounted how their ancestors fled Aztlan as the waters rose. Is it possible that these stone alignments are more than just calendars or tombs? Could they be a kind of code left behind by survivors to preserve the knowledge of their downfall? The sophistication of these structures defies the conventional timeline of human progress. How did Neolithic builders, supposedly primitive, achieve such precision without metal tools or written language? The great menhir of Lochmariaca, once the tallest standing stone in Europe, weighed over 300 tons. Moving it would require not just brute strength, but advanced engineering and mathematics. This level of skill hints at a lost knowledge, perhaps a legacy inherited from an older, more advanced civilization, one that, like Atlantis, met a catastrophic end. Perhaps the most compelling clue lies in the global pattern. From the Karnak stones to the dolmens of Korea, from the alignments of Peru to the stone circles of Britain, these megaliths share uncanny similarities in design and purpose. It's as if disparate cultures were following the same blueprint or responding to the same celestial prompt. Could this be evidence of a shared memory, a worldwide recollection of a time when the skies shifted, the seas surged, and the earth shook? The stones don't speak, but their alignment whispers a tantalizing possibility that the fall of Atlantis wasn't just a local tragedy, but a cataclysm so vast, its echoes were carved into the landscape across continents. As we stand among these ancient stones, tracing their alignment with the heavens, we're left with a humbling thought. If these megaliths are indeed messages from the past, what else might they be trying to tell us? Are they markers of time, tombstones of a lost world, or something even more profound, a warning etched in stone, urging us to heed the lessons of those who came before? The answers might not lie in the soil beneath our feet, but in the stars above, waiting to be decoded. What if Atlantis didn't just vanish in a single, catastrophic moment, but unraveled through a series of devastating choices? The question of how this legendary civilization fell has split scholars for centuries, with theories ranging from earth-shattering natural disasters to the slow erosion of human arrogance. One of the most compelling explanations points to the fury of the Earth itself. Imagine a volcanic eruption so violent it triggers tsunamis hundreds of feet high, swallowing entire cities in a matter of hours. The Minoan civilization on Crete met a similar fate around 1600 BCE, when the island of Thera exploded in one of history's most catastrophic eruptions. Ash blotted out the sun, tidal waves crushed coastal settlements, and within generations, a sophisticated society faded into myth. Could Atlantis have suffered the same doom? Geological evidence from the Mediterranean and Atlantic shows layers of ash and sediment that align with ancient flood stories. hinting at a disaster vast enough to inspire Plato's tale. But natural disasters alone might not tell the full story. Another theory suggests Atlantis fell victim to its own success. Advanced civilizations often manipulate their environments, building canals, diverting rivers, mining resources until the land can no longer sustain them. The Maya, for instance, constructed towering cities in the jungle, only to collapse as deforestation and drought depleted their water supplies. Sound familiar? Plato's account describes Atlanteans as master engineers who reshaped their island with canals and grand constructions. If they overextended their resources or disrupted natural balances, their paradise could have become a trap. Soil erosion, sinking aquifers, or even rising sea levels from climate shifts might have turned their home into a watery grave. The parallels to modern challenges: coastal cities threatened by rising oceans, societies strained by resource depletion, are impossible to ignore. Then there's the darker possibility that Atlantis was doomed not by nature but by human nature. Plato wrote of the Atlanteans becoming aggressive and greedy, waging war on neighboring lands until the gods punished their hubris. History is littered with civilizations that collapsed from within. The Roman Empire buckling under corruption, Easter Island society fracturing as clans toppled each other's statues in rivalry. Could internal strife have weakened Atlantis before the final blow? Ancient texts from Egypt to Mesopotamia speak of kingdoms brought low by civil war or moral decay, echoing Plato's warning. Even the layout of Atlantis's concentric rings, described as both a marvel of engineering and a symbol of isolation, suggests a society that grew insular, perhaps even tyrannical. The most haunting idea of all is that Atlantis's fall wasn't one cause, but a perfect storm of disasters. Take the Bronze Age collapse around 1200 BCE, when a chain reaction of earthquakes, invasions, droughts, and rebellions shattered Mediterranean civilizations. A single volcanic eruption might not destroy a resilient society, but combine it with famine, unrest, and failing infrastructure, and even the mightiest kingdom can crumble. Modern examples like New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina or the near collapse of Puerto Rico's power grid show how disasters expose and amplify human vulnerabilities. If Atlantis faced multiple crises at once, a quake destabilizing their land while political turmoil fractured their unity, their fate becomes tragically plausible. Whether by fire, water, or their own hands, the story of Atlantis forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Civilizations are fragile. The same forces that buried this legendary island still loom over us today. Rising seas, erupting supervolcanoes, and the slow creep of societal decay aren't just ancient threats, they're modern realities. Perhaps Atlantis's greatest lesson isn't where it was or how it fell, but why its story still chills us. It's a mirror held up to our own world, asking silently, are we listening? Myths are more than just fireside tales, they're time capsules, preserving fragments of history in the guise of legend. Consider the story of Atlantis not as mere fiction, but as a vessel carrying echoes of real events. Scholars like Joseph Campbell argued that myths are humanity's oldest textbooks, encoding truths about disasters, migrations, and societal collapses in symbolic language. The flood narratives found in cultures from Mesopotamia to the Americas, for instance, might reflect collective memories of rising sea levels at the end of the last ice age. These stories weren't invented, they were inherited, reshaped by each generation to keep the warning alive. The Atlantis tale fits this pattern perfectly. Plato's account, with its vivid details of quakes and floods, reads like a trauma preserved in amber, but here's the twist: oral traditions often compress time. What feels like a single cataclysmic event could represent centuries of decline. Take the Norse myth of Ragnarok, where the world drowns before reborn. Modern climatologists now recognize this as a possible memory of volcanic winters or rising seas that plagued early Scandinavia. Similarly, could Atlantis be a composite of multiple drowned cities? The Minoans, the Doggerlanders, even the lost settlements now submerged off India's coast, all might have contributed threads to the legend. This blending of fact and fiction isn't accidental. Ancient societies lacked our tools for recording history, so they wrapped truths in metaphor. The Greek poet Hesiod wrote of golden and silver ages, eras of peace and turmoil, that mirror real archaeological evidence of societal booms and collapses. Even the Bible's Sodom and Gomorrah, destroyed by fire, aligns with geological evidence of a meteoric airburst over the Dead Sea around 3,600 years ago. Myths, then, aren't lies, they're allegories, survival guides dressed as stories. The cautionary power of these tales is undeniable. Atlantis isn't just about a sunken city, it's a mirror held up to every civilization that overreaches. The Aztecs feared the return of Quetzalcoatl, whose departure prophesied their empire's fall. The Polynesians spoke of Hawaii, a paradise lost to recklessness. These recurring motifs, pride, punishment, and ruin, suggest a hard truth. Humanity has always known its fragility. The Atlantis story endures not because we doubt its reality, but because we recognize its message. Separating fact from legend isn't about debunking myths, it's about listening to what they're trying to say. When Plato warned of Atlantis's greed, was he recording history or critiquing his own society's excesses? The answer might be both. Like a prism refracting light, myths bend truth into shapes we can grasp. The stones beneath the sea and the stories passed down through millennia are pieces of the same puzzle. And the most thrilling part, we're still learning how to put them together. The search for Atlantis isn't just a dive into ancient texts, it's a journey across the restless earth itself. From the sun-baked shores of the Mediterranean to the turquoise waters of the Caribbean, geologists have uncovered startling evidence of lands swallowed by the sea, each a potential candidate for Plato's lost kingdom. Take Santorini, the crescent-shaped island that was once a thriving Minoan settlement until a volcanic cataclysm around 1600 BC shattered its center. The eruption was so colossal, it sent tsunamis racing across the Aegean, burying coastal cities under layers of ash and water. Sound familiar? The parallels to Plato's description of Atlantis's destruction, earthquakes, fire, and a civilization vanishing beneath the waves are uncanny. But here's the catch. Santorini's disaster predates Plato by over 1,000 years. Could his account be a distant echo of this real-life catastrophe, passed down through generations until it became legend? Then there's Doggerland, the vast plain that once connected Britain to Europe, now lying beneath the North Sea. Around 6,500 years ago, rising seas and a devastating tsunami known as the Storica Slide drowned this fertile land, forcing its inhabitants to flee. Underwater surveys have revealed forests, rivers, and even human tools preserved in the silt, proof that this wasn't just a land bridge but a home. Could Doggerland's fate have inspired the Atlantis story? It's possible. Ancient Britons would have carried memories of this lost world, tales of a fertile paradise reclaimed by the sea. Over millennia, these stories could have traveled, morphing into the tale Plato eventually recorded. But the Atlantic Ocean holds its own clues. Near the Azores, a chain of volcanic islands midway between Europe and America, sonar scans have revealed massive underwater plateaus with terraced formations eerily reminiscent of Plato's concentric rings. Some researchers argue this could be the remnant of a sunken landmass, though skeptics point out the area lacks evidence of human activity. Then there's the Bahamas, where the Bimini Road's geometric blocks and the underwater pyramid near Cuba fuel speculation. Could these be fragments of Atlantean infrastructure or simply the whims of nature? The debate rages, but one thing's clear: the Atlantic's floor is far from empty. Perhaps the most compelling geological evidence comes from ice cores and sediment layers, which tell a story of global chaos around 12,000 years ago. The Younger Dryas period saw sudden, violent climate shifts. Temperatures plummeted, ice sheets advanced, and sea levels rose by hundreds of feet in mere decades. This wasn't just a flood, it was a planetary reboot. Coastal settlements worldwide would have vanished, their stories surviving only as flood myths. If Atlantis existed, this cataclysm could have been its end. From the submerged ruins off India's Gulf of Cambay to the sunken cities now being mapped off Spain's coast, the Earth is whispering a consistent truth. Civilizations have risen and fallen with the tides for millennia. The question isn't just where Atlantis might have been, but when. Geological timelines are vast and human memory is short. A disaster that took centuries, like the slow sinking of Doggerland, might be remembered as a single, terrible night. A volcanic eruption that darkened skies for years could become the wrath of the gods. The Earth's crust is a palimpsest layered with forgotten histories. Whether Atlantis was Santorini, Doggerland, or a land yet undiscovered, its story lives on because it speaks to something deeper than fact. It's a reminder that the ground beneath our feet is never as solid as it seems, and that the past, no matter how drowned, always leaves traces. Plato's description of Atlantis doesn't just paint a picture of wealth and power, it hints at something far more extraordinary. The Atlanteans, he wrote, clad their temples in orichalcum, a mysterious metal that gleamed like fire, and built sprawling cities with concentric canals that defied the engineering knowledge of their time. But was this just poetic embellishment, or could Atlantis have harnessed technologies we've only rediscovered in the modern age? The idea of an ancient advanced civilization isn't as far-fetched as it might seem. Take the Antikythera mechanism, a 2,000-year-old Greek device often called the world's first computer. Its intricate bronze gears predicted astronomical events with precision that shouldn't have been possible for centuries. If the Greeks could create such a marvel, what might an even older society like Atlantis have achieved? Ancient texts from around the world whisper of lost sciences that border on the fantastical. The Hindu Vedas describe Vimana's flying machines powered by mercury vortex engines. Egyptian hieroglyphs depict what some interpret as light bulbs, their curved filaments glowing with an otherworldly radiance. Even the biblical book of Ezekiel tells of a wheel within a wheel descending from the sky, its appearance eerily reminiscent of modern UFO accounts. Could these stories be garbled memories of real technologies? The Mahabharata, an Indian epic, recounts a war where weapons unleashed blazing arrows of smoke and flame that leveled cities, a description uncomfortably close to nuclear explosions. When you piece these fragments together, a pattern emerges. Humanity's oldest myths are riddled with anomalies that sound suspiciously like advanced tech. Then there are the artifacts that defy explanation. In the jungles of Costa Rica, perfectly spherical stone balls weighing up to 16 tons are scattered like marbles, their surfaces so smooth they couldn't have been shaped by primitive tools. The walls of Sacsayhuaman in Peru fit together with such precision that not even a razor blade can slip between the stones, yet they were supposedly built without mortar or metal tools. Most tantalizing of all are the accounts of crystals that powered Atlantis. Edgar Cayce, the so-called sleeping prophet, claimed Atlanteans used giant energy crystals for healing and communication, a notion that echoes modern laser technology. While skeptics dismiss these as New Age fantasies, quartz crystals do have piezoelectric properties, capable of generating electricity under pressure. Could ancient peoples have understood this on some level? The line between myth and innovation blurs when you consider how knowledge can be lost. The Library of Alexandria held countless scrolls detailing ancient sciences, all reduced to ashes. The Baghdad Battery, a 2,000-year-old clay jar containing an iron rod and copper cylinder, suggests the Parthians might have stumbled upon electroplating. If such discoveries could vanish from history, what else might have been forgotten? Perhaps Atlantis's technology wasn't gadgets as we imagine them, but a profound understanding of natural forces, acoustics, magnetism, celestial mechanics harnessed in ways we're only beginning to rediscover. What makes these claims so compelling isn't just the evidence, but the questions they force us to ask. Why do so many cultures share stories of flying machines and energy weapons? Why do megalithic structures across the globe display mathematical sophistication that shouldn't exist in their eras? The most plausible explanation lies somewhere between wild speculation and rigid skepticism. Atlantis may not have had anti-gravity devices, but it could have possessed knowledge that seemed like magic to later civilizations, just as our smartphones would astound someone from the Middle Ages. The real mystery isn't whether Atlantis had advanced tech, but how much of humanity's potential has been erased by time, leaving only echoes in our oldest stories. Exploring the ruins of Atlantis isn't like digging through ancient cities on land. It's a battle against crushing darkness, shifting currents, and the relentless weight of the ocean itself. Underwater archaeology is one of the most demanding sciences on Earth, where every dive is a race against time, pressure, and the slow erosion of history. At just 30 meters down, the water presses with enough force to collapse untrained lungs, while sediment blankets artifacts like a shroud, hiding them for centuries. Yet despite these challenges, modern technology is finally pulling back the veil on these submerged secrets, revealing glimpses of a past we once thought lost forever. One of the biggest hurdles is visibility. Unlike terrestrial sites where sunlight illuminates every detail, the ocean floor is a twilight world where even the most advanced lights struggle to pierce the murk. Sediment kicks up at the slightest disturbance, turning the water into a swirling fog that can erase a ruin from view in seconds. That's where side-scan sonar comes in, a game changer for underwater exploration. These devices send sound waves rippling through the water, painting detailed images of the seafloor without ever needing to touch the ruins. In 2010, researchers using this tech discovered a series of massive stone structures off the coast of Cuba, lying 600 meters below the surface. The geometric precision of these formations, rectangles, pyramids, even what appear to be roads, suggests human hands shaped them, but their depth places them far beyond the reach of conventional diving. Then there's the pressure. For every 10 meters descended, the weight of the ocean increases by an atmosphere, turning deep dives into a high-stakes balancing act. Traditional scuba gear becomes useless below certain depths, forcing archaeologists to rely on remotely operated vehicles, or ROV, Robotic Explorers equipped with cameras, claws, and even lasers to map ruins in stunning detail. In 2017, an ROV named Hercules probed the Mediterranean near Crete, uncovering a Minoan shipwreck laden with pottery and tools untouched for over 3,000 years. These robotic pioneers are rewriting history, proving that the ocean's depths hold far more than scattered artifacts. They cradle entire chapters of human civilization. But perhaps the most tantalizing breakthroughs come from sediment cores, long cylinders of mud drilled from the seafloor that act like time capsules. By analyzing layers of pollen, ash, and even microscopic organisms, scientists can reconstruct ancient climates and pinpoint moments of catastrophe. off the coast of India, cores taken near the submerged city of Dwarka revealed a sudden influx of sand around 1500 BC, evidence of a tsunami that may have drowned the legendary kingdom in a single day. Similar cores near the Bahamas show layers of scorched earth beneath the seabed, hinting at a cataclysmic event that could align with Plato's timeline for Atlantis's fall. What makes these discoveries so thrilling isn't just the technology, but the questions they raise. If we've already found cities like Dwarka and Helike, how many more lie hidden? The ocean covers 70% of our planet, yet less than 5% of its floor has been mapped in detail. Every expedition brings us closer to understanding not just Atlantis, but the countless societies that vanished beneath the waves, their stories preserved in stone, waiting for the right tools to reveal them. The hunt for Atlantis is more than a quest for a lost city. It's a test of human ingenuity, a race to recover the past before time and tide erase it completely. With every robotic dive, every sonar scan, we're not just searching for ruins, we're learning how to listen to the ocean's whispers, to decode the language of drowned worlds. And who knows, the next breakthrough might not just rewrite history, it could redefine our place in it. Carved into the weathered surfaces of ancient stones, strange symbols spiral and loop patterns that refuse to fit neatly into any known alphabet. From the towering menhirs of Brittany to the submerged ruins near Bimini, these cryptic markings have fueled speculation for generations. Could they be fragments of a lost Atlantean script, a final attempt to preserve knowledge before the waves came crashing in? The quest to decode them is more than an academic puzzle. It's a chance to hear the whispers of a civilization silenced by time. Take the Glozal tablets discovered in France in 1924. Etched with symbols resembling a mix of Phoenician and Iberian scripts, they've been dismissed as hoaxes by some and hailed as evidence of a pre-Celtic writing system by others. But what's fascinating is how closely some glyphs mirror those found on the so-called Atlantean stones of the Canary Islands, spirals, zigzags, and sunbursts that appear nowhere else in the region. Could these shared motifs hint at a common cultural origin, perhaps a maritime society that spanned the Atlantic before its collapse? The similarities don't end there. The Vinca symbols of the Balkans, dating back over 7,000 years, include identical comma shapes and branching lines, suggesting a symbolic language that predates Sumerian cuneiform by millennia. Then there's Linear A, the undeciphered script of the Minoans, a civilization that, like Atlantis, met a sudden, watery end. Its loopy, plant-like characters share stylistic quirks with carvings found on megaliths in Portugal's Alentejo region. Both lack the rigid geometry of later Greek or Egyptian writing, as if they were designed to flow like water or vines. Intriguingly, Plato described Atlantean temples inscribed with sacred writings, and while no such texts have been found, the recurring themes in these symbols, waves, concentric circles, and what might represent seismic shocks, paint a haunting picture. Are these not just markings, but a collective scream frozen in stone? The challenge is separating universal patterns from deliberate communication. Spirals, for instance, appear in Neolithic art worldwide, from Newgrange in Ireland to the Nazca lines in Peru. They could represent the sun, the cycles of life, or even the whirlpools that swallowed Atlantis. But when combined with other motifs like the hand and eye, symbols found on Malta's hypogeum, and in Mesoamerican ruins, the possibility of a shared symbolic language grows harder to dismiss. These aren't random scratches, they're deliberate, repeating configurations that cross oceans and epochs. Modern technology is finally offering new ways to crack these codes. AI algorithms trained on known scripts have begun identifying potential phonetic values in Linear A, while 3D imaging has revealed previously invisible carvings on stones long thought blank. In 2021, researchers using reflectance transformation imaging RTI uncovered faint Atlantean-like symbols on a menhir in Spain's Andalusia region, glyphs that had been worn smooth to the naked eye. Each breakthrough peels back another layer, suggesting these stones are far more than monuments. They might be libraries, their shelves stacked with stories we're only beginning to glimpse. The most tantalizing theory that these symbols aren't just a language but a warning. The recurring wave motifs, the sunbursts that could depict explosions, the zigzags resembling earthquake fractures, they all point to a trauma etched into collective memory. If Atlantis fell to a cataclysm, its survivors might have scattered, carving their terror into stone wherever they landed. Like a message in a bottle tossed across millennia, these symbols could be pleading, "Remember us." Learn from this, the irony is poignant. A civilization advanced enough to leave such precise markers couldn't save itself, but it might still save us. As long as these stones stand, the puzzle remains. Every chisel mark, every weathered curve holds a piece of the story. Whether they're Atlantean, Minoan, or something even older, their silence is deafening. And somewhere in their tangled lines, the truth waits not just about the past, but about the fragility of every society that dares to rise too high. From the dusty clay tablets of Mesopotamia to the oral traditions of indigenous Australians, flood myths echo across continents like a chorus of shared trauma. The Epic of Gilgamesh, carved into stone over 4,000 years ago, tells of a great deluge sent by angry gods, with a righteous man named Utnapishtim building an ark to save his family and animals. Sound familiar? Centuries later, the Hebrew Bible would recount Noah's nearly identical story: divine wrath, a wooden vessel, and a rainbow promise. But these aren't isolated tales. The ancient Greeks spoke of Deucalion's flood, where survivors repopulated the earth by throwing stones that turned into people. The Maya's Popol Vuh describes a world drowned by the gods to punish humanity's arrogance. Even in the highlands of China, the legend of Gun Yu tells of a 9-year flood so vast it required the intervention of a dragon to control the waters. What's striking isn't just the similarity of these stories, it's their specificity. Many describe more than just rain. They speak of tsunamis, underground waters bursting forth, and the fountains of the deep breaking open. The Aboriginal story of the Dreamtime Flood recounts how the sea rose to swallow coastal lands, forcing tribes to flee inland. The Norse myth of Bergelmir tells of a primordial giant surviving a flood in a hollowed-out tree, mirroring the ark motif. These details suggest something more than allegory. They hint at lived experience, a collective memory of coastlines vanishing, villages disappearing beneath the waves, and survivors scrambling for high ground. Could these narratives be fractured recollections of real events, perhaps even the sinking of Atlantis? Geology offers a tantalizing clue. Around 12,000 years ago, as the last ice age waned, melting glaciers triggered catastrophic sea level rises. Coastal plains that had been home for millennia were inundated, sometimes in sudden bursts. The Black Sea, for instance, may have transformed from a freshwater lake into a saltwater sea in a matter of months when the Mediterranean breached the Bosporus. For the people living there, it would have been apocalyptic. Imagine watching the ocean reclaim your world, foot by relentless foot, with no explanation beyond the fury of unseen forces. These weren't isolated incidents. From the Sunderland Shelf in Southeast Asia to the Persian Gulf, vast stretches of habitable land slipped beneath the waves during this period, precisely when Plato dated Atlantis's fall. Yet the flood myths share another eerie thread, the idea that water wasn't the only destroyer. The Aztecs spoke of the Son of Water, a time when fiery rain fell from the sky before the floods came. The Popolvuh mentions resin falling from the heavens, possibly describing volcanic ash. This aligns with evidence of the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, a theory proposing that comet fragments struck Earth around 12,800 years ago, triggering wildfires, climate chaos, and crucially massive meltwater pulses that could have drowned entire regions. If Atlantis existed during this upheaval, its fate might have been sealed by a 1-2 punch of cosmic fire and rising seas. The most haunting possibility is that these stories aren't just about survival, but about warning. Flood myths almost universally carry a moral dimension. The gods punish humanity for its flaws. The Babylonian Atrahasis epic blames the flood on human noise disturbing the divine. The Kayich Maya accuse their ancestors of becoming corrupt of heart. Plato's Atlantis fell due to hubris. This recurring theme suggests that ancient cultures didn't just record disasters, they encoded lessons in their retelling. The floods weren't random acts of nature but consequences, and if that's true, then Atlantis' story isn't just history, it's a prophecy. Today, as satellites map sunken river valleys beneath the North Sea and divers uncover submerged villages off India's coast, the flood myths feel less like fiction and more like fractured eyewitness accounts. The water remembers what the land has forgotten. Whether these stories point to Atlantis or simply to humanity's shared vulnerability, one thing is clear. The past is whispering to us through the echoes of ancient floods, urging us to listen before the waves rise again. What if Atlantis' greatest treasure wasn't gold or gleaming temples, but knowledge secrets of the natural world so profound they border on magic? Across esoteric traditions, from the mystery schools of ancient Egypt to the submerged libraries whispered of in Hindu texts, there's a persistent idea that Atlantis possessed wisdom far beyond our own. The Greek historian Diodorus Siculus wrote of Atlanteans mastering the movements of the heavens and the art of healing, while medieval alchemists believed their sacred texts held formulas for transmuting matter. Even Plato hinted at this, describing Atlantean priests who could read the stars like scrolls and harness energies from the earth itself. Could these accounts be more than myth? Today, as quantum physics grapples with entanglement and biologists decode the body's energy meridians, it's worth asking, are we just now catching up to what Atlantis once understood? Take holistic medicine. The Edgar Cayce readings, a collection of channeled prophecies from the early 20th century, describe Atlantean healers using crystals and sound waves to restore balance to the human body. At the time, this sounded like fantasy, yet modern research shows how specific frequencies can stimulate tissue regeneration, while piezoelectric crystals are used in medical devices to target tumors. Similarly, Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine speak of vital energies flowing through the body, concepts dismissed as pseudoscience for centuries until neurobiologists discovered the body's interstitial fluid network, a hidden highway of electrical signals that mirrors these ancient maps. The parallels are uncanny. Did Atlantis develop a science of energy medicine that we're only now reconstructing? Then there's the enigma of cosmic awareness. Indigenous cultures worldwide share stories of ancestors who communicated telepathically or sensed impending disasters through shifts in the Earth's magnetism. The Dogon people of Mali, for instance, knew of Sirius B, a star invisible to the naked eye, centuries before telescopes confirmed its existence. Could such knowledge trace back to Atlantis? Theosophists like Helena Blavatsky claimed Atlanteans possessed a third eye of intuition, atrophied in modern humans. Strikingly, modern neurology identifies the pineal gland, a light-sensitive organ buried deep in the brain, as a potential regulator of consciousness, sometimes called the seat of the soul. Coincidence or evidence of a lost biological interface with the cosmos? the most tantalizing clues lie in architecture. From the Great Pyramid's alignment with Orion to Angkor Wat's celestial mirroring of Draco, ancient builders encoded astronomical knowledge into stone with impossible precision. The Mayan calendar, accurate to within seconds over millennia, tracks galactic cycles modern astronomers only confirmed in the 1960s. If these cultures inherited fragments of Atlantean wisdom, as some secret societies claim, it would explain how disparate civilizations separated by oceans and epochs shared such sophisticated understanding. Even Plato's description of Atlantis's capital, with its concentric rings resonating like a harmonic seal, echoes modern cymatics experiments where sound waves shape matter into geometric patterns. Perhaps the most provocative idea is that Atlantis didn't just fall, it foresaw its demise. Tibetan monks speak of Shambhala, a hidden kingdom preserving Atlantean knowledge for a future age of crisis. The Hopi prophecy of the blue star Kachina warns of a time when the Earth will shake twice, a possible nod to seismic catastrophes like those that sank Atlantis. In this light, Atlantis's legacy isn't just about lost technology, but a warning wrapped in enigma, that true advancement requires harmony with nature's laws. As climate change and AI force us to confront our own fragility, the whispers of this drowned civilization grow louder, not as a relic but as a mirror, asking if we'll repeat their mistakes or finally heed the wisdom they fought to preserve. The irony is profound. We scour the ocean floor for Atlantean ruins while their greatest gifts might be hidden in plain sight, encoded in our myths, our medicines, even our DNA. Whether these connections are historical or symbolic matters less than what they reveal, that the past and future are threads in the same tapestry, and somewhere in its weave, Atlantis still speaks. Imagine standing at the center of an ancient stone circle as the first light of dawn creeps over the horizon. Slowly, the sun aligns perfectly with a gap in the stones, casting a beam of light onto a single carved marker, a moment frozen in time calculated thousands of years ago. This isn't just ceremony, it's celestial engineering, and if researchers like Graham Hancock are right, these precise alignments might be fragments of a far older, far wiser civilization, one that understood the heavens with a sophistication we're only beginning to grasp. Could Atlantis have been the source of this knowledge, its people mapping the stars with such clarity that their ruins still whisper their secrets to those who know where to look? Take the Great Pyramid of Giza, often linked to Atlantean lore. Its sides align almost perfectly with the cardinal directions, while its air shafts point directly to Orion's belt and Sirius, stars sacred to cultures across the ancient world. But here's the puzzle. The pyramid's alignment is so precise that even modern architects would struggle to replicate it without satellite technology. How did a society supposedly limited to copper tools achieve such accuracy? Hancock and others propose a radical answer. These weren't just Egyptian innovations, but inherited blueprints from a much older civilization, one like Atlantis, whose navigators might have used the stars not just for ritual, but for survival. The evidence stretches far beyond Egypt. In Turkey, the 12,000-year-old ruins of Göbekli Tepe feature pillars carved with constellations, including a detailed depiction of the Orion constellation as it would have appeared millennia ago. Across the Atlantic, the Mayan city of Teotihuacan mirrors the same celestial pattern, with its pyramids arranged to mirror the stars of Orion's belt. Even more strikingly, the Angkor Wat temple complex in Cambodia aligns with the Draco constellation as it would have shone in 10,500 BCE, a date eerily close to Plato's timeline for Atlantis's fall. These parallels aren't just coincidental, they suggest a shared astronomical language, one that spanned continents and epochs. But why would ancient cultures, separated by oceans, encode the same star maps into their architecture? Hancock's controversial theory posits a lost global civilization, a maritime society, perhaps Atlantis, that circumnavigated the globe, seeding knowledge wherever it sailed. The clues are in the myths. The doggone people of Mali, untouched by modern astronomy until the 20th century, knew of Sirius B, a star invisible without telescopes. Their legends say this knowledge came from amphibious beings who arrived from the stars. Similarly, the Hopi speak of the Kachina, sky gods who taught them celestial wisdom. Could these stories be distant memories of Atlantean explorers, their navigational prowess so advanced it seemed godlike? The stars might have been more than just a guide for Atlantis. They could have been its downfall. Plato's account mentions a great deviation of celestial bodies preceding the island's destruction. Modern researchers like Randall Carlson point to the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, where comet fragments struck Earth around 12,800 years ago, triggering fires, floods, and a sudden ice age. Ancient star charts like the Lascaux cave paintings in France depict what some interpret as a tumbling constellation, a celestial catastrophe frozen in ochre. If Atlantis existed during this chaos, its astronomers might have recorded the event in stone, their observatories doubling as bunkers against the coming storm. What's chilling is how these ancient warnings resonate today. The same stars that guided Atlanteans now guide our satellites, their alignment still etched into ruins we've yet to fully understand. Whether Atlantis was a physical place or a metaphor for humanity's forgotten potential, its legacy lives in the silent dialogue between stone and sky. Every solstice marker, every pyramid's shadow, is a breadcrumb left by a civilization that knew the cosmos could be both mentor and executioner. And as we peer deeper into the past, we might find that the stars they followed aren't just maps, they're mirrors reflecting our own fragile place in the universe. Pinpointing the exact moment Atlantis vanished beneath the waves is like trying to catch smoke with your hands. Every clue slips through your fingers just as you think you've grasped it. Plato gives us our most tantalizing hint, placing the catastrophe 9,000 years before his time, which would land the disaster around 11,600 years ago. That date doesn't just place Atlantis in prehistory, it drops us into the geological chaos of the Younger Dryas period, a time when the Earth itself seemed to rebel. Ice sheets were retreating, sea levels were rising at rates that would drown modern cities in months, and then around 12,800 years ago something catastrophic happened. Ice cores from Greenland reveal a layer of platinum and nanodiamonds, telltale signs of a cosmic impact. Could this have been the knockout punch that sank Atlantis? But geology tells a more complicated story than a single cataclysm. Sediment cores from the Caribbean show not one but three distinct layers of upheaval ash, tsunami debris, and sudden changes in ocean temperature, spanning centuries. This suggests Atlantis's end might not have been a single day of wrath, but a slow unraveling. Imagine a civilization battling rising tides, their farmlands salted by storm surges, their ports vanishing underwater year by year. Dendrochronology, the study of tree rings, adds another layer. Ancient bald cypress forests in North America show stunted growth around this time, evidence of a global winter triggered by volcanic eruptions or impacts. If Atlantis existed, its people would have watched their world wither, crops failing, skies darkening, the very ground trembling beneath them. Then there's the puzzle of the black mat layers found across North America and Europe, a thin, dark band of soil packed with charred remains of plants and animals, all dating to the same epoch. Some researchers argue this is the smoking gun of Atlantis's demise, a continent-scorching event that reshaped the planet. but others counter that the black mat could represent slower processes like rising groundwater drowning peat bogs. The debate hinges on whether we're seeing the aftermath of a fireball or the slow suffocation of landscapes. Either way, the Earth's archives suggest that Atlantis, if it stood during this time, faced horrors beyond comprehension. Curiously, human cultures seem to remember this chaos. The Göbekli Tepe carvings in Turkey, dated to around 11,600 years ago, depict a scorpion and vultures looming over headless figures, symbols some interpret as a celestial disaster. The Egyptian Turin Papyrus speaks of a time when the gods were at war and the sky rained fire. Even the biblical tale of Sodom and Gomorrah's destruction by brimstone and fire aligns eerily with impact hypotheses. These aren't just myths, they're trauma narratives passed down through generations like a game of broken telephone, each retelling preserving a fragment of the truth. The most haunting possibility is that Atlantis didn't just fall, it foresaw. Plato's account mentions the Atlanteans becoming corrupt before their punishment, suggesting they recognized their own decline. Modern parallels are hard to ignore. Today's climate models predict rising seas and superstorms with chilling precision, yet we struggle to act. If Atlantis had astronomers or seers, they might have tracked the same celestial warnings we've found in ice cores and tree rings. Their megalithic observatories, aligned to solstices and eclipses, could have been more than temples. They might have been countdown clocks, measuring the approach of a disaster only they could see coming. Time may blur the details, but it doesn't erase them entirely. Whether Atlantis fell in a day or dissolved over centuries, its story lingers in the scars of the Earth and the echoes of our oldest myths. The real question isn't just when it happened, but whether we're listening closely enough to the warnings it left behind. The pyramids of Giza rise from the desert like silent witnesses, their perfect geometry defying time. But could their origins lie not in Egypt, but in a lost world beneath the waves? The similarities between Atlantean architecture as described by Plato and these ancient wonders are striking. Plato spoke of Atlantis's capital as a series of concentric rings, alternating water and land, while Egyptian temple complexes like Karnak mirror this design with sacred lakes encircling inner sanctuaries. Even more intriguing, the Great Pyramid's alignment with Orion's belt echoes the celestial knowledge Plato attributed to Atlantean priests. This isn't mere coincidence. It's a thread connecting civilizations separated by millennia, suggesting a shared architectural language passed down from a common source. Venture across the ocean to the jungles of Central America, and the echoes grow louder. The Mayan calendar, with its precise tracking of galactic cycles, aligns eerily with Plato's claim that Atlanteans mastered astronomy. Their pyramids, like those at Tikal, are crowned with temples dedicated to the feathered serpent Kukulkan, a deity associated with wisdom and destruction, much like the Greek Poseidon who ruled Atlantis. The Mayan Popol Vuh even describes a primordial flood that wiped out an earlier race of giants, mirroring Atlantis's fate. These parallels have led scholars like Augustus Le Plongeon in the 19th century to propose that Mesoamerican cultures were direct descendants of Atlantean survivors, carrying fragments of their knowledge across the sea. The diffusionist theory, the idea that cultural traits spread from a single advanced source, gains traction when you examine the global distribution of megalithic technology. From Stonehenge's towering sarcens to the moai of Easter Island, massive stones were quarried, transported, and erected with techniques that baffle modern engineers. The Inca's polygonal masonry in Peru fits so tightly that not even a blade of grass can slip between the blocks, a method eerily similar to that used in Malta's prehistoric temples. If these distant cultures developed independently, why do their constructions share such precise, almost obsessive craftsmanship? The answer might lie in a maritime civilization like Atlantis, whose seafaring explorers could have disseminated these techniques along ancient trade routes now submerged. Even our modern world carries whispers of Atlantis. The philosopher Francis Bacon envisioned it as a utopian society in his unfinished novel New Atlantis, where science and spirituality harmonized, an idea that inspired the Royal Society, the very foundation of modern scientific inquiry. The symbol of the Ouroboros, the serpent eating its tail, appears in both Atlantean lore and alchemical texts as a representation of eternal cycles, later adopted by Carl Jung as a metaphor for psychological wholeness. And consider the recurring motif of the sunken city in popular culture, from Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea to the mythos of Marvel's Nama. These aren't just stories, they're cultural memories surfacing again and again like fragments of a forgotten dream. The most compelling evidence, however, might not lie in stone or story, but in language itself. Basque, spoken in the Pyrenees, shares no roots with any known European tongue, yet linguists have found startling similarities to languages in the Caucasus and even among Native American tribes. The Guanche people of the Canary Islands, before their extinction, left inscriptions that some researchers link to ancient Libyan scripts, hinting at a lost transatlantic connection. Could these linguistic outliers be the last echoes of an Atlantean mother tongue, scattered like shards after a vase shatters? We may never find a smoking gun, a tablet inscribed with the words, "Property of Atlantis," but the cumulative weight of these connections is hard to dismiss. Whether through deliberate transmission or subconscious archetypes, the legacy of this drowned civilization permeates our art, our science, and our collective imagination. The real question isn't whether Atlantis existed, but why its specter haunts us so persistently, perhaps because on some level we recognize ourselves in its story, the brilliance, the ambition, and the fragility. Every time we gaze at a pyramid's shadow or chart the stars, we're not just looking back, we're listening for a message bottled in time, waiting to be deciphered. Beneath the velvet robes and cryptic symbols of secret societies, one name surfaces again and again: Atlantis, the sunken citadel of forbidden knowledge. The Theosophical Society, founded in the late 19th century by Helena Blavatsky, placed Atlantis at the heart of its cosmology, claiming it was the homeland of the root races, advanced beings who seeded ancient wisdom across the globe. In her seminal work, The Secret Doctrine, Blavatsky described Atlanteans as giants with psychic abilities who wielded energies tied to the Earth's ley lines, a concept that eerily parallels modern theories about telluric currents and electromagnetic grids. For Theosophists, Atlantis wasn't just a historical footnote. It was a spiritual blueprint, a reminder of humanity's forgotten potential. Freemasonry, with its labyrinth of rituals and allegories, embraces Atlantis as a metaphor for lost enlightenment. The Masonic legend of Hiram Abiff, the murdered architect of Solomon's Temple, mirrors Plato's tale of a fallen civilization punished for revealing divine secrets. Some Masonic texts even suggest that the Pillars of Enoch, said to preserve antediluvian knowledge, were Atlantean artifacts. The allure is clear. Atlantis represents the ultimate mystery, a repository of arcane truths guarded by time and tide. When Masons speak of rebuilding the temple, they're not just referencing Solomon's era, they're invoking a far older legacy, one drowned beneath the waves. Rosicrucians and other esoteric orders took this further, weaving Atlantis into their initiation rites. The Rosicrucian Fama Fraternitatis, published in 1614, speaks of a hidden vault containing wisdom from a pre-flood civilization, while 20th century mystics like Rudolf Steiner taught that Atlanteans harnessed etheric forces through sacred sound. These weren't just wild claims, they tapped into a universal yearning for origins. Atlantis became the ultimate golden age, a time when magic and science were one before the fall into materialism. But why does this lost civilization captivate the secretive and the spiritual alike? The answer lies in its duality, both cautionary tale and beacon of hope. For occultists, Atlantis is proof that profound knowledge exists beyond mainstream history, waiting to be rediscovered. Its destruction serves as a warning against hubris, while its remnants, whether in Masonic lore or theosophical charts, offer a roadmap to transcendence. In a world hungry for meaning, Atlantis is the perfect symbol, just real enough to tantalize, just elusive enough to defy dismissal. The deeper truth may be that secret societies don't just preserve Atlantean myths, they keep alive the question at their core. What if the past holds keys to our future? What if enlightenment isn't about moving forward but remembering? Whether through coded rituals or whispered legends, these groups guard not just secrets, but the enduring human desire to find them. Atlantis, in the end, is less a place than a mirror reflecting our deepest fears and highest aspirations back at us across the abyss of time. Plato's account of Atlantis sinking beneath the waves reads like an ancient climate report, a civilization brought low by the very forces it failed to heed. The parallels to our modern predicament are impossible to ignore. Rising seas, destabilized coastlines, extreme weather, these weren't just the stuff of Atlantean legend. They're the headlines of our daily news. The difference, Atlantis didn't have satellite data or global summits to warn them. Or did they? Some researchers argue the megalithic structures they left behind weren't just temples, but early warning systems, aligned to celestial shifts that signaled coming disasters. If that's true, then their greatest failure wasn't ignorance but inaction. Consider the Younger Dryas period, a time of abrupt climate shifts 12,000 years ago, right around Plato's timeline for Atlantis's fall. Ice cores revealed temperatures in Greenland spiked by 10 degrees in a decade, while sea levels rose 400 feet in centuries. Entire ecosystems collapsed. Sound familiar? Today, the Arctic warms 4 times faster than the global average, and glaciers retreat at record speeds. The Minoans, often linked to Atlantis's inspiration, faced a similar reckoning when the Thera eruption triggered tsunamis and volcanic winters. Their sophisticated palaces on Crete couldn't save them from nature's fury. Neither will our skyscrapers if we ignore the warnings etched in ice cores and tree rings. Yet the most haunting similarity lies in human behavior. Plato described the Atlanteans as masters of engineering who tore at the earth with abandon, digging massive canals and mining resources until their land became unstable. Modern megacities mirror this hubris, pumping groundwater until streets sink, deforesting watersheds, and burning fossil fuels despite the consequences. Easter Island's collapse offers a microcosm of this pattern, a society that felled its last tree to erect statues, dooming itself to starvation. The lesson isn't that progress is dangerous, but that unchecked exploitation is suicidal. Atlantis's canals might have been marvels, but they also disrupted natural drainage, possibly accelerating their island's subsidence. Likewise, our levees and dams often exacerbate floods they're meant to control. The twist: Atlantis might have seen its doom coming. Ancient cultures worldwide preserved flood myths not as fairy tales, but as survival manuals. The Aboriginal story of the rainbow serpent warns of droughts and deluges tied to environmental disrespect. The Norse myth of Fimbulwinter predicts 3 years of snow before apocalypse, a folk memory of volcanic winters. These stories aren't prophecies, they're case studies. When the Greenland Vikings ignored Inuit warnings about overgrazing, their settlements vanished under permafrost. When the Maya exhausted their soil, their cities were reclaimed by jungle. History whispers the same refrain: civilizations don't fall overnight, they rot from within, blinded by short-term gains while the tides creep higher. What saves us from Atlantis's fate isn't technology alone, but the humility to use it wisely. The Dutch, living below sea level for centuries, didn't fight the ocean, they adapted, building floating neighborhoods and restoring wetlands as natural buffers. Indigenous fire management techniques, ignored for decades, are now curbing wildfires in Australia and California. These aren't retreats from progress, but evolutions of it. Atlantis's tragedy wasn't that it drowned, but that it might have had the knowledge to prevent it and chose not to listen. As ice shelves crack and coral reefs bleach, we stand at the same crossroads. The stones of Atlantis, whether real or metaphorical, hold up a mirror. Will we be the civilization that heeded the past, or another cautionary tale for future generations? The water is rising. This time, we can't say we weren't warned. The Bermuda Triangle, a stretch of ocean between Florida, Puerto Rico, and Bermuda, has long been a graveyard for ships and planes, its waters swallowing vessels without a trace. But what if these disappearances aren't just the work of rogue waves or methane bubbles? Some researchers propose a far more tantalizing theory, that the ruins of Atlantis lie beneath these turbulent currents, their forgotten technology still active, warping reality itself. The idea might sound like science fiction, but when you examine the anomalies reported in the triangle compasses spinning wildly, electronics failing, time distortions, it's hard to dismiss the possibility that something unnatural lurks below. Take the case of Flight 19 5U, Navy bombers that vanished in 1945 during a routine training mission. The pilots' final radio transmissions described their instruments malfunctioning, the ocean not looking right, as if the very fabric of their environment had shifted. Decades later, sonar scans of the triangle's seafloor revealed strange, geometric formations near the Bahamas structures. Some claim resemble submerged pyramids or energy-generating crystals like those described in Atlantean lore. Even Christopher Columbus's logs from his voyages mention erratic compass readings and eerie lights beneath the waves in this region. Could these be glimpses of a dormant power source, remnants of a civilization that harnessed energies we're only beginning to understand? Skeptics argue that the triangle's reputation is overblown, a mix of sensationalism and statistical coincidence. After all, more ships sink in the North Sea, and GPS has demystified many vanishings. But here's the counterpoint. The triangle sits atop the Puerto Rico Trench, the deepest part of the Atlantic, where tectonic activity meets uncharted abysses. If Atlantis sank in this region, its ruins could be interacting with natural forces in ways we can't yet measure. Russian scientist Dr. Vyacheslav Kudryavtsev theorized that Atlantean energy accumulators, built from crystalline structures, might still emit sporadic pulses, disrupting electromagnetic fields. It's not magic, it's physics we haven't fully mapped. The most compelling evidence might come from outside the triangle. In the late 1960s, a pilot flying over the Bahamas reported seeing a glowing underwater city just before his instruments failed. Near Bimini, divers have photographed what appear to be smooth, fitted stone blocks, some arranged in perfect right angles at depths inconsistent with natural erosion. Even NASA satellite imagery has detected anomalous magnetic readings in the area, patterns that mirror the sacred geometry Plato attributed to Atlantis's temples. Whether these are coincidences or clues, they suggest the ocean is hiding more than shipwrecks. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere between myth and science. The Bermuda Triangle might not house a fully intact Atlantean death ray, but it could sit atop geological quirks amplified by ancient ruins. Imagine a scenario where submerged megaliths, rich in conductive minerals, interact with underwater currents to create localized electromagnetic chaos. Or consider that Atlantis's builders, aware of their sinking fate, deliberately placed their energy grids in zones prone to tectonic shifts, hoping to preserve their knowledge or weaponize it. Either way, the triangle's mysteries challenge us to rethink what's possible. The ocean doesn't give up its secrets easily. For every vanished plane or ship, there's a rational explanation waiting to be found, but also a whisper of something older, something stranger. Whether the Bermuda Triangle's enigmas are tied to Atlantis or not, they remind us that the past isn't always past. Sometimes it's lurking just beneath the surface, waiting to pull us into the unknown. Ancient maps hold secrets that defy conventional history, none more puzzling than the Piri Reis map of 1513, a fragment of vellum that shouldn't exist. Drawn by an Ottoman admiral using far older sources, it depicts coastlines with eerie precision, including the Americas and, most shockingly, Antarctica's ice-free contours. But Antarctica had been buried under miles of ice for millennia by then. How could a 16th century cartographer know its true shape? Some researchers suggest this knowledge came from Atlantean explorers, a seafaring civilization that mapped the world before the last ice age erased their homeland. The map's own notes claim it was pieced together from 20 older charts, some dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. Were these lost references the work of Atlantean surveyors, their mastery of geography preserved in scattered fragments? The mystery deepens with the Orontius Phineus map of 1531, which not only shows Antarctica but divides it into river valleys and mountain ranges, features invisible today under 2 miles of ice. Modern sonar confirms these details, proving the map wasn't a lucky guess. Then there's the Bewatch map of 1737, depicting an Antarctic landmass split by a vast inland sea. Satellite radar reveals this exact submerged basin, hidden beneath glacial sheets for 12,000 years. These aren't isolated mistakes, they're a pattern. Someone, long before recorded history, mapped a world they shouldn't have known, a world that matched the Earth's geography before the cataclysms Plato associated with Atlantis's fall. Skeptics dismiss these maps as medieval fantasies or lucky interpolations, but the evidence resists easy dismissal. The Piri Reis map's grid uses spherical trigonometry, a technique supposedly unknown until the 18th century. Its portrayal of the Amazon basin, drawn as 2 separate rivers, matches prehistoric geological studies showing the river once split around a now submerged island. Too many coincidences pile up. Could these maps be the work of Alexandrian scholars copying even older Atlantean charts, as Charles Hapgood proposed? Or are we seeing the ghostly fingerprints of a civilization erased by rising seas? The most compelling argument for Atlantean cartography lies in its purpose. Maps this precise weren't just decorative, they were tools for navigation, trade, and perhaps survival. Plato described Atlantis as a maritime empire with ports spanning the globe. If their sailors had mapped coastlines later drowned by meltwater pulses, their knowledge might have survived in fragments, passed down through Egyptian or Phoenician mariners. The Zeno map of 1400, for instance, places a mysterious island called Estatiland in the North Atlantic, exactly where some theories place a remnant of Atlantis. Even Ptolemy's ancient texts mention Antalya, a phantom island west of Spain whose name echoes Atlantis. Yet the debate isn't just about accuracy, it's about intent. Many ancient maps blend real geography with myth, like the Hereford Mappa Mundi's dragons and biblical scenes. Could the Piri Rise Maps anomalies simply reflect artistic license or symbolic storytelling? Maybe, but symbols don't account for the uncanny match between these maps and prehistoric landscapes. The truth might lie in the middle, that ancient cartographers mixed genuine surveys with legend, preserving slivers of Atlantean knowledge without understanding their source. What's undeniable is that these maps challenge our timeline of human achievement. They suggest a forgotten epoch when explorers charted the Earth with tools and methods we've yet to rediscover. Whether that knowledge came from Atlantis or another lost culture, the message is clear. History's pages aren't just missing, they've been drowned, and the ocean, as always, keeps its secrets close. Psychic archaeology sounds like something ripped from the pages of a fantasy novel, seers closing their eyes, hands hovering over ancient artifacts, claiming to glimpse lost cities in their mind's eye. Yet for decades, practitioners like Stefan Schwartz and the late Edgar Cayce have insisted that the human mind can tap into what traditional excavation cannot, the emotional imprint of history itself. Cayce, known as the Sleeping Prophet, gave hundreds of readings describing Atlantis in startling detail, its crystal-powered energy grids, its towering temples with walls of orichalcum, even the geographic coordinates of its sinking. Skeptics dismiss his visions as elaborate fiction, but here's the twist. Some of his predictions, like the discovery of underwater structures near Bimini, eerily preceded actual archaeological finds. The controversy lies in the method. Unlike ground-penetrating radar or carbon dating, psychic archaeology relies on subjective impressions, flashes of imagery, emotions, or even physical sensations tied to objects or locations. In the 1970s, Schwartz led a series of experiments with trained intuitives to map the sunken ruins of Alexandria's ancient harbor. Blindfolded and given no prior information, participants described submerged statues, columns, and even the layout of streets with uncanny accuracy, later confirmed by divers. Similar experiments at California's Mission San Juan Capistrano yielded precise details about hidden tunnels and artifacts, all verified by subsequent digs. These successes raise a provocative question. If the mind can access forgotten layers of history in these cases, why not Atlantis? Critics argue that psychic archaeology is a self-fulfilling prophecy, vague visions retroactively fitted to match known facts. They point to Cayce's misses, like his prediction that Atlantis would rise near the Bahamas in the 1960s. Yet even staunch skeptics pause at cases like that of Diane Goldner, an intuitive who in 1994 described a submerged Atlantean healing temple near Cuba's coast, complete with pink granite pillars. Decades later, sonar scans revealed megalithic stones in that very area, their composition still unstudied. Coincidence or evidence of something science hasn't yet quantified? The most compelling argument for psychic archaeology isn't its infallibility, but its potential to guide conventional research. When intuitive insights align with geological or historical data, like Cayce's descriptions of Atlantean refugees fleeing to Egypt and the Yucatan, regions later linked by DNA studies, it creates a roadmap for physical exploration. The trick is distinguishing genuine psi phenomena from the brain's knack for pattern matching. Neuroscientists like Dr. Dean Radin suggest that quantum entanglement might allow consciousness to access non-local information, essentially tuning in to the past like a radio signal. It's a fringe theory, but so was continental drift a century ago. What makes these accounts unforgettable isn't just their mystery, but their humanity. Psychic archaeologists often describe Atlantis not as a cold, dead ruin, but as a living society in their visions, the scent of salt and incense in temple courtyards, the hum of energy devices, the terror of the final quakes. These aren't dry data points, they're emotional fragments, as if the stones themselves remember. Whether these visions are metaphysical truths or the brain's poetic way of reconstructing the past, they remind us that history isn't just buried in layers of soil. It's etched into the collective unconscious, waiting for the right mind to listen. The debate may never be settled, but the stories persist, not as proof, but as possibility. In the end, psychic archaeology's greatest gift isn't certainty, but wonder. It challenges us to ask, if Atlantis's secrets lie somewhere between science and the soul, which tool will we trust to find them? Atlantis has never truly been lost, not in our stories at least. Long before Hollywood draped it in CGI, Plato's allegory was already evolving, shape-shifting to fit the fears and fascinations of each new era. Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, 1870, reimagined Atlantis as a sunken necropolis, its ruins glimpsed through the porthole of Captain Nemo's submarine. The scene is hauntingly sparse, no dialogue, no treasure, just silent pillars, still standing like the Parthenon on its rock. Verne's vision tapped into the Victorian obsession with exploration and the uncanny, framing Atlantis not as a lesson in hubris, but as a testament to nature's power to erase even the grandest works of man. By the 20th century, Atlantis had become a playground for pulp fiction and silver screen spectacle. Disney's 2001 animated film Atlantis, The Lost Empire, swapped Plato's philosopher kings for steam-powered submarines and glowing crystals, blending Mayan aesthetics with dieselpunk flair. Here, Atlantis wasn't just a ruin. It was a living society preserving ancient technology, a trope that echoes real-world theories about Atlantean energy grids. Meanwhile, Raiders of the Lost Ark competitor, the Atlantean 1961, leaned into Cold War paranoia, depicting the lost city as a bunker for Nazi war criminals, proof that pop culture could twist the myth to mirror contemporary anxieties. Video games have weaponized Atlantis's ambiguity. In Tomb Raider 1996, Lara Croft races mercenaries through trap-laden ruins, treating Plato's legacy like a high-stakes treasure hunt. By contrast, Assassin's Creed Odyssey 2018 recreated the thorough eruption as a playable cataclysm, grounding its fantasy in the volcanic trauma that may have inspired the original myth. These adaptations reveal a tension. Is Atlantis a cautionary tale, a MacGuffin, or a mirror held up to our own technological ambitions? The myth's staying power lies in its elasticity. For comic books like DC's Aquaman, Atlantis is a fractured kingdom of warring tribes, its political strife reflecting modern geopolitics. In Stargate 1994, it's an alien outpost blending sci-fi with ancient astronaut theories. Each iteration asks the same question Plato did: what happens when civilization overreaches, but answers it through the lens of its time. Even Netflix's The OA wove Atlantis into its metaphysical tapestry, suggesting the lost city was a dimensional rift, a metaphor for the human soul's unquenchable longing. Why does this drowned city refuse to stay buried? Because Atlantis isn't just a place, it's an idea, one that adapts as swiftly as we do. In climate-conscious eras, it's a warning about rising seas. In tech booms, it's a parable of innovation outpacing ethics. Its ruins are a blank canvas, waiting for us to project our hopes and dread onto their crumbling stones. The real Atlantis may lie beneath the ocean, but its shadow walks among us, forever just out of reach. For all its allure, the legend of Atlantis faces fierce skepticism from mainstream academics who see it as little more than a philosophical parable, one that's been wildly misinterpreted. Dr. Kenneth Feder, an archaeologist and vocal critic of pseudo-archaeology, compares the search for Atlantis to chasing a mirage. His argument hinges on an inconvenient truth. despite centuries of exploration, not a single artifact, inscription, or geological feature has been definitively linked to Plato's lost kingdom. The absence of physical evidence is staggering when you consider how thoroughly we've mapped the ocean floor, from the mid-Atlantic ridge to the abyssal plains. If an advanced civilization had sunk beneath the waves, wouldn't we have found at least one unmistakable trace, a tool, a weapon, a shard of that fabled orichalcum? The danger, skeptics warn, lies in what psychologists call confirmation bias, the tendency to interpret ambiguous evidence as proof of what we already believe. Take the Bimini Road, often hailed as an Atlantean ruin. Geologists have shown its blocks are beak rock, a natural formation created by tidal cementation of sediments. Yet enthusiasts still describe them as paved streets, seeing intentional design where science sees only geology. This pattern repeats worldwide. The Yonaguni monuments, steps, are likely sandstone fracturing, while sunken cities off India and Cuba often turn out to be submerged coastal settlements from known historical periods. As archaeologist Flint Dibble puts it, the ocean has swallowed countless cultures. That doesn't make them Atlantis. Even Plato's timeline poses problems. His claim that Atlantis fell 9,000 years before Solon's era would place its destruction around 11,600 BCE, a time when human societies were nomadic hunter-gatherers. The idea of a bronze-wielding superpower with concentric cities and naval fleets clashes with everything we know about Neolithic technology. Some historians argue Plato fabricated this antiquity to give his allegory gravitas, much like modern authors set dystopian tales in the far future. The Egyptian priests he cites as sources, no records from ancient Egypt mention Atlantis, and the story's style aligns with Greek morality tales, not Egyptian historiography. Then there's the myth's elasticity, its ability to fit almost any proposed location from the Caribbean to Antarctica. This isn't a strength, skeptics say, but a red flag. As classicist Deskin Clay observed, Atlantis functions like a Rorschach test. People see what they want in it. The same vagueness that makes the legend enduring also makes it unfalsifiable. For every match between Plato's description and a real-world site, Santorini's rings, Doggerland's flooding, there are glaring inconsistencies. Santorini's eruption occurred 1,000 years before Plato's timeline, while Doggerland lacked cities or metals. But perhaps the most damning critique comes from archaeology's own track record. Genuine lost cities, Troy, Machu Picchu, Hilike, were found because their descriptions were precise and their cultural contexts clear. Atlantis, by contrast, floats in a sea of contradictions. As historian Mark Adams notes, the more you try to pin it down, the more it slips away. That hasn't stopped the searches, of course. From psychic mediums to billionaires funding sonar scans, the hunt persists. Yet after 2 millennia, the most plausible explanation remains the simplest: Atlantis was never real. A brilliant thought experiment, yes. A cautionary tale about hubris, absolutely. But a sunken empire waiting to be found, the evidence or lack thereof suggests otherwise. Does this mean the legend has no value? Not at all. Atlantis endures not as a place, but as an idea, one that challenges us to question how civilizations rise, fall, and are remembered. The real mystery isn't beneath the ocean, it's in why we keep looking. The human mind doesn't just crave stories, it needs them, stitching together fragments of memory and imagination to make sense of a chaotic world. Atlantis isn't merely a sunken city. It's a psychological anchor, a myth that fills the gaps between what we know and what we fear. Carl Jung called these shared stories archetypes, universal patterns buried deep in the collective unconscious. The flood, the golden age, the fallen utopia, these aren't just tropes. They're psychic blueprints hardwired into us. Atlantis fits this mold perfectly, embodying our deepest anxieties about progress and punishment. It's no accident that every era reinvents Atlantis in its own image, from Renaissance maps placing it as a caution against colonial greed to modern sci-fi, reimagining it as a cautionary tale of AI run amok. The myth survives because it's hollow enough to project onto, yet solid enough to feel real. Consider how effortlessly Atlantis adapts. For 19th century theosophists, it was a spiritual homeland of enlightened masters. For Cold War filmmakers, it became a bunker for Nazi superweapons. Today, as climate change looms, it's a drowned warning of rising seas. This chameleon quality isn't a flaw, it's the myth superpower. Unlike historical events shackled to facts, Atlantis floats free, morphing to meet the fears of the moment. When Jung wrote of the shadow, the repressed darkness within society, he might as well have been describing Atlantis, a civilization so advanced it courted disaster, mirroring our own dance with nuclear power, genetic engineering, and ecological brinkmanship. The real magic lies in the duality of the legend. Atlantis is both a specific place, Plato's concentric rings, the shimmering orichalcum, and a vague enough concept to live anywhere. Off the coast of Cyprus, in the Sahara's eye, beneath Antarctic ice, the lack of physical proof doesn't weaken the myth, it strengthens it. Like a Rorschach blot, Atlantis reveals more about the seeker than the sought. UFO enthusiasts see an alien base. Energy healers sense crystalline power grids. Academics dismiss it as allegory, yet even their skepticism feeds the mystery. This tension between fact and fantasy is the myth's beating heart. Perhaps the most profound truth about Atlantis is that it has to be lost. A found Atlantis would collapse under scrutiny, its magic dissolved by carbon dating and pottery shards. The moment we dredge up a verifiable ruin, the dream dies. This paradox, yearning for discovery while dreading it, echoes our relationship with all great mysteries. Bigfoot sightings dwindle when everyone carries a camera. The Loch Ness Monster fades under sonar scans, but Atlantis, safely entombed beneath hypothetical oceans, remains eternally possible. It's the ultimate Schrödinger's cat of archaeology, both real and unreal until observed. What we're really chasing isn't a city, but catharsis. Atlantis lets us rehearse our own potential collapse to grieve civilizations not yet fallen. When climate scientists warn of coastal cities drowning, they're invoking Atlantis without saying its name. When tech billionaires build bunkers or seed doomsday vaults, they're playing out Atlantean endings in real time. The myth endures because it's not about the past, it's about the future we're hurtling toward. Every dredged ruin, every sonar anomaly is a Rorschach test asking, is this the reflection we fear or the one we hope to find? In the end, Atlantis is less a place than a ritual, a story we keep telling to measure how far we've come and how close we might be to the edge. The stones, if they exist, are incidental. The real ruin is the one we carry inside, the unshakable sense that brilliance and hubris share the same foundation. Whether Plato's allegory or a whisper from the deep, Atlantis refuses to sink because we keep pulling it back to the surface, not with ropes and sonar, but with the weight of our own unanswered questions. The hunt for Atlantis is entering its most thrilling chapter yet, armed with technologies that would make even Plato's wildest imaginings seem quaint. Picture this: sleek, autonomous drones plunging into the abyss, their floodlights slicing through darkness to reveal ruins untouched for millennia. These aren't the clunky submersibles of the past. They're equipped with laser scanners that create 3D maps of the seafloor down to the millimeter, spotting patterns invisible to the human eye. Projects like Ocean Infinity's Armada fleet are already scouring the depths with these robotic explorers, turning what was once speculative into systematic. And it's not just about hardware. Machine learning algorithms now sift through sonar data, flagging anomalies that could be man-made amidst the natural chaos of coral and rock. The ocean's secrets, long guarded by pressure and darkness, are finally within reach. Satellites, too, are joining the search from above. NASA's upcoming NISA mission, set to launch in 2024, will use radar to detect subtle shifts in Earth's surface, including submerged structures hidden beneath layers of silt. Similar tech has already pinpointed lost cities in the Amazon and Sahara. Why not Atlantis? Private firms like Planet Labs deploy constellations of microsatellites, capturing high-res images of coastal regions where ancient maps suggest Atlantis might have thrived. The key lies in hyperspectral imaging, which analyzes LIGHT Chinese letter patterns to identify materials like worked stone or metals, even underwater. Imagine spotting the ghostly outline of a sunken plaza or the spectral signature of orichalcum from orbit. But the real game changer might be DNA, not of Atlanteans, though that's a wild thought, but of the ocean itself. Scientists are now sequencing environmental DNA from seawater, tracing genetic fragments shed by millennia of marine life. The goal: to detect sudden shifts in ecosystems that could mark a cataclysmic event, like the tsunami that may have drowned Atlantis. In the Mediterranean, eDNA has already revealed ancient human activity near submerged caves. Apply this to the Azores or the Bahamas, and we might find genetic smoke signals from a civilization that farmed, fished, and fell. And let's not forget the archaeologists themselves, who are trading trowels for virtual reality. Teams at the University of Sydney are using VR to walk through digitally reconstructed ruins, testing theories about Atlantean architecture against Plato's descriptions. It's one thing to read about concentric rings, it's another to stand inside them virtually and see if the geometry aligns with megalithic sites like Stonehenge or Göbekli Tepe. Meanwhile, breakthroughs in linguistics are cracking ancient scripts like Linear A, which some believe could hold Atlantean echoes. If symbols on a Cretan tablet match carvings in the Canary Islands, the puzzle pieces might finally snap into place. The next decade isn't just about finding Atlantis, it's about redefining how we search for lost worlds. Whether through particle accelerators analyzing underwater sediment for cosmic impact debris or crowdsourced efforts like the Lost Cities project, which enlists amateur explorers to scan satellite imagery, the tools are democratizing. The dream is no longer confined to academics or adventurers. It's in the hands of anyone with a smartphone or a passion for the past. Will we uncover a column inscribed with the words, "Welcome to Atlantis"? Maybe not, but every scan, every algorithm, every dive brings us closer to understanding whether Plato's tale was prophecy, history, or something in between. The ocean hasn't given up its secrets yet, but for the first time we're speaking its language. Atlantis isn't just a story, it's a mirror. For some, it's a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of what happens when ambition outpaces wisdom. For others, it's a lost paradise, a symbol of a golden age we yearn to rediscover. And then there are those who see it as the ultimate puzzle, a riddle etched in stone and sea, begging to be solved. But beneath all these interpretations lies something deeper. The way Atlantis reflects our own fears, hopes, and unanswered questions about who we are and where we're headed. Take Dr. Clara Bennett, a marine archaeologist who spent 20 years chasing whispers of submerged ruins. To her, Atlantis isn't just a city, it's a testament to human resilience. Every time I dive, she says, I'm not just looking for stones, I'm looking for the moment they realized their world was ending. How did they react? Did they fight, did they flee, or did they carve their warnings into the very walls that would drown? Her work isn't just about discovery, It's about empathy, about connecting with people who faced the unthinkable millennia ago. Then there's Marcus Vega, a historian who sees Atlantis as a cultural lifeline. Growing up in Puerto Rico, he heard stories of Boricua ancestors navigating by the stars, tales that echoed Plato's descriptions of Atlantean seafarers. The ocean doesn't just divide us, it connects us, he insists. When I read about Atlantis, I don't see a myth. I see a memory, a thread tying islands and continents together long before maps existed. For Marcus, the search isn't about proving Plato right. It's about reclaiming fragments of a shared heritage that colonialism tried to erase. But perhaps the most poignant perspective comes from Leela Chen, a climate scientist who studies rising sea levels. To her, Atlantis isn't ancient history, it's tomorrow's headline. We're living the reverse of the Atlantis story, she explains. Instead of searching for a drowned city, we're watching our own coasts disappear. The irony, we have the tools to prevent it, but like the Atlanteans, we're paralyzed by short-term thinking. Her research is a race against time, but also a plea. Will we be the civilization that learned from the past, or the one that repeated its mistakes? What makes Atlantis endure isn't just the mystery of its disappearance, but the way it forces us to confront our own fragility. Every generation reinvents Atlantis to fit its anxieties, from Cold War fears of nuclear annihilation to today's dread of climate collapse. The legend thrives because it's elastic, stretching to hold whatever truths we need it to. But there's a flip side to that adaptability. The less we know for certain, the more we project onto Atlantis, turning it into a blank screen for our collective psyche. So what does Atlantis mean to you? A warning, a dream, a challenge? The beauty of the legend is that it doesn't demand a single answer. It invites us to keep asking, to keep searching, not just for a sunken city, but for the parts of ourselves that resonate with its story. After all, the greatest mysteries aren't the ones we solve, but the ones that change us along the way. As we resurface from the depths of Atlantis's enigma, the waters of history and myth still ripple with unanswered questions. Whether Plato's tale was a cautionary fable or a blurred memory of real catastrophe, its power lies in how it forces us to confront the fragility of human achievement. The ruins beneath the waves, those crumbling walls and enigmatic stone alignments, aren't just relics of a lost world. They're mirrors reflecting our own civilization's precarious dance with nature and ambition. Think of the Minoan frescoes buried under Thera's ash, their vibrant colors frozen in time, or the Doggerland plains now home to shipwrecks instead of villages. These aren't just archaeological curiosities, they're chapters in a story we're still writing. What if Atlantis's true legacy isn't a sunken city, but the questions it compels us to ask? Every culture that remembers a great flood, every megalithic circle aligned to the stars, every whispered legend of a golden age lost their threads in a tapestry of collective memory. The Yonaguni formations off Japan, the Bimini Road's puzzling stones, even the Antarctic ice cores showing sudden climate shifts, they all whisper the same unsettling truth. Civilizations rise and fall, often at the mercy of forces they barely understood. Atlantis endures not because we've found it, but because we recognize ourselves in its parable. This isn't just about the past. The same oceans that swallowed Atlantis now lap at the foundations of Miami and Venice. The same cosmic forces that may have triggered the Younger Dryas cataclysm still streak across our skies as comets and asteroids. The difference, we have tools our ancestors lacked: satellites to track rising seas, drills to sample ancient ice, algorithms to decode forgotten scripts. Yet knowledge alone isn't enough. Atlantis's warning, if it has one, is about what happens when innovation outpaces wisdom. So where does the search go from here? The answer might lie not in grand expeditions, but in re-evaluating what's already been found. Those natural rock formations off Cuba, re-examine them with AI pattern recognition. The global flood myths, cross-reference them with new geological data on prehistoric sea level spikes. Even Plato's dialogues might yield fresh insights when read alongside dendrochronology records or volcanic ash layers. The key is to stay curious, to let the mystery inspire rather than frustrate. As the screen fades and the credits roll, remember this: Atlantis isn't a destination. It's a lens. Through it, we see our capacity for brilliance and blindness, for creation and catastrophe. The next time you walk a shoreline or gaze at the stars, consider what fragments of our own era might one day puzzle future explorers. The adventure doesn't end here, it evolves. Drop your theories in the comments, hit subscribe to join the next chapter, and keep looking. The ocean isn't the only place where lost worlds hide. Sometimes they're waiting in the stories we've yet